Hey, Chris, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you here. It's been great working with you guys, with your team out here in West Texas, and really getting to know what you guys do at Lone Star Electric has been a really great experience for me.
Yeah, no, I thought it was important to have you out at our grand opening because I can sit there and talk to you on the phone about it. I can email you about it, but until you kind of see it in person and see the warehouse and see the stock and see just the sheer size of the operation we have here, I think until you lay your eyes on it, you just don't kind of totally understand the magnitude of what we're trying to accomplish out here. So
And I agree with that because that's exactly the impression I got when I got to it. And I mean, the different vendors that were there supporting you guys and showcasing their products. I mean, it was your own networking event. It was like a mini trade show in the back of the warehouse.
yeah, no, we were very grateful. Obviously, we have a lot of channel partners. We are essentially a liaison for our manufacturers, right? We are the sales organization for them. And so having their support, having them show up, right? Because some may be located in North Carolina or Houston or Dallas or maybe even local here to Odessa, but they all came together to really support us kind of in
And,
that
you
venture.
could feel that support because I talked to several of them. Whenever I start working with a new company or business, especially out here in the Permian, I like to know more about the sector. And working with different electrical companies, it was really beneficial for me to understand the types of products that you guys are selling and what the vendors are representing, and really the knowledge that was there and the quality products. And so the channel partners that you guys have are really excellent partners to be affiliated with.
No, absolutely. I think that was my biggest takeaway as I got into electrical distribution was just the magnitude of how many different product segments there were, how many different manufacturers there were for each product, and then just the sheer amount of products that we push across the entire electric industry. And so it is a bit of a learning curve for sure for someone coming outside the industry into it that you have a wealth of resources from manufacturing partners and manufacturers reps who are there to teach you about every single thing that they have to offer, which you are going to go take to market. And so, yeah, we're extremely grateful to have really, really great channel partners.
Well, and then with the industrial side out here in West Texas, compared to the clientele that you have in Houston and
Yeah.
across the state, it's drastically different.
No, 100%. So Lone Star started as a commercial residential electrical distributor. And it wasn't until about 2 years ago that we spun off the industrial sector, right? So we are heavy, heavy oil and gas. We are heavy renewables. And so we launched Houston, obviously with the ship channel there and a heavy downstream market. We found immediate success. And then my background with a large book of my business being out here, being a former pipeline construction contractor, a former facilities contractor. When I went to Lone Star, I was like, guys, y- if we're not in West Texas, if we're not in Midland, Odessa, then we're going to be missing out on a significant portion of industrial work. I mean, there's an enormous demand out here for good electrical suppliers. And so
You're
that's
absolutely right.
and that's why we quickly moved out here.
Well, that was a great call, and, I mean, seeing that because the experience that you had out here and you could see the demand for it, and were you a little bit ahead of that curve as far as being the go-to supplier when you guys decided to come out?
Um, I I I don't wanna say we were a go-to supplier. I think, contacts-wise, as I was a mechanical contractor, right? So we would get a scope of work, which would then have electrical as part of that. But we
Mhm.
didn't do electrical. So we had many different subcontractors we would kick those
Yep.
scopes to. And so we developed a lot of relationships with electrical contractors. Well, as I'm transitioning to electrical distribution, I'm calling the guys like, hey, do you remember all that work you used to do for us? Well,
Yeah.
now I'm supplying that. And so when I'm having conversations as I get into Lone Star, they're like, well, Chris, it's no different than when you were a mechanical contractor. Like, if you wanna play in this sandbox, you gotta be here. Like, we love you, we wanna work with you, but it's gonna be really hard to work with you if you're sending your supplies out of Houston.
Right.
And so that's why when I went back to our CEO and our president, I was like, "Hey, guys, we have to be here. You have to have brick and mortar. You have to have a local presence.
Right.
And they immediately like, okay, we're going to make that happen. And we did in about 6 months. I mean, it was that important to them.
That important, and to be able to move that quickly and build it and have it ready to be servicing this region, like, that was a pretty fast build.
Yeah. And I think, just as anybody else, how important the people and staffing are out here, right? I mean,
Mhm,
every pipeline contractor is looking for good people to come out and work for them. Every electrical contractor is looking for another superintendent or another foreman or another journeyman. I mean, it's no different for us, right? So that was one of the first hurdles we had to overcome was, yeah, we found a phenomenal warehouse. I mean, the absolute perfect location we could have asked for. That's step one. Well, now we got to staff it because we can easily put the stock in there. And,
mhm,
we have millions of dollars worth of stock to service our customers. But if we don't have anybody to go pick it in the warehouse or somebody to write up a sales ticket or meet
mhm.
somebody at the counter, we're not going to be good to anyone. And so that was one of the largest hurdles that we had to overcome was, getting local staff. And we did, and we have a great team out here. I'm really proud of.
That's exciting, and like you said, that physical representation of you guys being here, it being a local a local store that you can walk into and pick up your products and talk to somebody because I mean, you're right. With it being in Houston, that was really going to be a challenge to continue building your business out here if you didn't have that physical presence in West Texas.
Yeah, and not just even from a cost standpoint. Obviously, cost is very important, but if I'm adding freight to it, then I'm uneconomic against my competitors here
Right.
locally. But purely because of urgency, it's just a much different demand out
Hmm.
here. It's, hey, there's a bid walk on Tuesday. You're going to get your documents probably that same day. You've got to go through that scope of work, build your proposal. You've probably got 2 to 3 days to turn it in. Well, they've got to get supplies. They've got to get it to us. So we're the last line of defense. We've got to put a cost to it. Well, guess what? That project's going to start in a couple days, if not that next day after they make the decision on those proposals. So we're getting calls like, hey guys, we like your proposal. I'm going to cut you a PO. I'm coming by tomorrow morning to pick it
Mm,
up. And so if I'm in Houston, I'm starting to panic, like, holy cow, I gotta get an overnight hot shot.
right.
Well, here we're more than prepared. And it kind of gets into that even leaks into like stock profile. Like in Houston, we get a purchase order, an award. Hey, it's 2 weeks, no problem. So even if I don't have it in stock, I can work with my channel partner and just say, hey, do you guys have it? I'll pick it up, I'll bring it to my warehouse. Well, here it's I need 100 feet of tray like in 2 hours. I need to go pick it up. So
Yeah.
we have to keep a different stock profile here in Odessa, Midland, just due to the pure urgency of the jobs that are happening so quickly in the
Hmm.
turnaround.
Yeah, and being like I had worked on a couple of facilities, so I've been on location and been a part of that urgency for inventory or the wrong supplies getting picked up or sent or something changing on the ISO.
Yeah,
And
no
I
doubt.
mean that happens too. You get a revision and then suddenly all your stock is wrong, all your inventory, and so you have to be prepared for anything. And I mean, it's a lot if you're out in Orla or Mentone on a facility to go to Odessa to pick something up. If you're waiting on it from Houston, that is going to change the course of the project and it can set you back weeks.
Yeah. We actually executed a job, and having been out here, I've been out here every other week for 6 years and going out to state line and going over, to the edge of Texas and New Mexico, going towards Jal, and they're like, "Okay, compressor station, right? There's a blue sign, you gotta take a left," and hooking a ride on a dirt road, and
Mhm.
I remember sending out the trucker with, $100,000 worth of material thinking, "This guy may not make it." It may be his first time delivering to a compressor station in the
Oh,
middle of
right.
nowhere,
Yeah.
and lo and behold, I get a call from the superintendent, "Hey, brother, where
Mhm.
is the material?" And we're trying to get a hold of this guy. He's like, "I have no idea where I am." And it was his entrance into like everybody goes through that for the first time
Oh,
out here, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
And you'll go through it a number of times
Mhm.
because you'll lose cell service and these,
Yeah.
sites are are everywhere. And so it was kind of a lesson learned for them and really for us that like, hey, we we really gotta get out here immediately because we have our own trucks here, right? We have people who are local here. They understand and know
Yeah.
what the environment of, trying to get a site looks like, right?
Uh-huh.
Whether it's a rig or a compressor station or a plant or, a
Yeah.
CTB,
Yeah.
they understand, but sending by somebody from Houston is a different experience. So I'm glad that that's not really a hurdle for us
Oh,
anymore.
I can imagine that would have been an enormous hurdle to overcome because, I mean, sending drivers to this region, they need to have experience driving on
Absolutely.
lease roads and understanding the layout because, I mean, Houston commercial Houston lifestyle compared to West Texas oil field, it's a totally different terrain to navigate.
Oh, 1,000% it is, right? So, a lot of our work in Houston is on the ship channel, and so you're dealing with what? Traffic? I
Mhm.
mean, out
You're sitting in traffic, which is the thing, but out here, that's
I mean, there's construction on the roads, right? I mean, you've got a rig that's going up just on the other side of I-20, and then you've got
mhm,
people who are, flying around you, unfortunately, and then again, you start to get even the further west you go out towards Orla and, like I
mhm.
said, state line towards Jow, upwards of Eunice. I mean, you can quickly go from like, hey, it's a 55-mile-an-hour road to now I'm on a dirt road for the next 2 miles to get to where I need to
And the
get to.
speed limit's 20.
The speed limit is
But
20.
you not only better only go 20, you don't wanna go faster than that because then you're gonna tear up your truck.
We go tear up your truck, and yeah, it
I mean, so there's
possibly.
no like and so I remember there was one location I worked on, and it was fairly easy to find, and it was infamous for the road that we would have to go on, but it was probably maybe 3 miles in, but it was 15 miles an hour, and it was a really rough road, and there were a lot of mental challenges for everyone to overcome because no matter how fast you could get to location, it was still going to take you 30 minutes to drive down that road. And whether you tried to drive on one side or the other, you'd find a smooth spot. You still couldn't drive faster than that because the landowner was out there watching most of the time.
100%.
And I mean, so many guys had damage to their trucks. I mean, they were replacing things left and right, and especially those welding rigs. Like, you just can't put your truck through condition every day and then not have something happen, and it was so like, some guys quit because of it, they just couldn't deal with it anymore. It was a great location once you got to it. The getting to it was the problem.
Yeah, I imagine the people who sell shocks on trucks do very well out here.
I bet they do too.
It's funny, I actually had one of my first lessons learned about coming out here. I started coming out here in January of 18. Um, I had a F-150 truck, no 4 by 4 no anything,
Oh,
and I
wow.
was with a customer in my truck, and we're driving a pipeline right away, and I got
Oh.
stuck.
Oh, you absolutely did. With two-wheel drive? What
And
were you
I mean,
thinking?
obviously, it's incredibly embarrassing. I'm a salesman trying to be like, "Yeah, man, we can build this pipeline," but I can't
Mhm,
even drive the pipeline. So I quickly went and got, an F-250 and
mhm.
with 4 by 4 and had no problems after that. But I was, again, it's a
Learning
lesson learned
Yeah.
of being in the Permian,
Oh,
right? I
yeah.
mean, it's just little stuff like that.
It is little stuff like that because you wouldn't have thought anything of it, but me, with as many right-of-ways I've been on in my life, I'm like, "You don't go on a pipeline right-of-way without four-wheel drive."
Yeah. Yeah, and I tried to do it in a car one time.
Awesome.
Yeah, we did a plant west of Jal about 20 minutes, and that is in the middle of absolutely nowhere.
Absolutely.
And I could barely even make it, but, sometimes you get out here, you can't get a truck, and you gotta just kinda make
Yeah, I
do,
mean,
right?
that's the thing that I've learned about the Permian is, like, it can really shape you
Oh,
from
100%.
those experiences because it's like you have to know how to like, I mean, driving from Midland to Pecos, like, you've gotta be mindful of how many gas stations are between here and there. It's not as bad as it used to be. I mean, you'll see a good truck stop every now and then, or Orla's really built up quite a bit from what it was, but this isn't somewhere that you just show up.
No, it's not. I think that's a good point. So I've been coming out here for 6 years, and, we launched Lonestar Electric Supply, and I have a great first year out here, selling into the market, whether it's to the end users, like your Energy Transfers, your enterprises, your Targas, the electrical contractors, and the folks in Houston are like, "Man, I want a piece of that. I wanna do that. Like, you did it. I can definitely do it." I was like, "Hey, guys, it's a it's a different ballgame out here. You're dealing with superintendents. I mean, the one of the first times I ever came out here, we had a yard in Carlsbad, a laydown yard, and I'm brand new. I got my boots on and starched jeans and my button up shirt, and I walk into a superintendent's office in a trailer in the middle of nowhere. And I told him, I was like, "Yeah, man, I have a yard in Carlsbad." And he's like, "Where is it?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know. It's just in Carlsbad." He goes, "Get out of my office."
Oh,
And that was like my entry into the permit working with a superintendent. He was like very direct. And now that was the politically correct side. I mean, he said it
oh, yeah,
way worse than that,
yeah.
and I got out quickly. But it's what I tried to relay is it's an old school, hey, I want to shake your hand. I want to look you in the eyes, and I want to know that you are real.
And you know what you're doing.
Absolutely, and
Yeah,
it took me a long time to build credibility out here because I'm coming from Houston and they know that.
yeah,
Because my competitors, their kids are playing little league with their kids, or they see them at the grocery store, or they see them at church, or they see
mhm,
them, wherever, and I don't have that, right? I'm not here on the weekend. I'm generally here every other week, Monday to Thursday or, Monday to Friday, and so they had to know, like, "Hey, this guy's for real. He's not just a flash in the pan," because, we see that all the time here in the
mhm,
Permian. Someone shows up, "Oh, man, we're here to do business," it's the big gold rush. We want a piece of it.
yeah,
It's like, "Hey, no, look, guys, I'm here for the long run. Like, I grew up old school. Like, hey, you look them in the yes, sir, no, sir, yes,
mhm.
ma'am, no, ma'am. You shake them in the hands, and that goes a long way out here,
It does.
right?" And so they wanted to know, like, all right, I know you don't live here, but I'm gonna trust that you're gonna take care of my business.
Yeah, and I could see that difference because those are some context clues. If yeah, you might look the part, but if you don't know your job, you don't know where your laid out yard is, I could see someone quickly deciding that you aren't worth your salt.
Yeah, no, 100%. And kind of getting back, so we had a guy who's like, no, I'm gonna do it anyway. I was like, when you go out there, you keep a pair of FRs with you, or the shirt, the jeans, you have steel toe boots, and you carry a hard hat because at any moment's notice, if you've got to go to a site, you better have it ready
Yeah,
because you better believe, Kinder Morgan wanted to meet, not in their office. They wanted to site. Did I have my, FRs? No, I didn't. I couldn't do it. And that was a quick lesson learned. It's
oh, yeah, it
it's
would
kind of
be.
that learning curve of
Mhm.
like, hey, if you want to play out here, you're going to have to learn. And that was kind of one of those things. And I had to teach those guys, like, hey, look, yeah, you can go sell a transformer or medium voltage cable in Houston, but you can show up in jeans and a t-shirt and do it. But like out here, it's a lot different. You're gonna have to go out to the site. You may not always be in the office.
Mhm.
It's a much different requirement to be a solutions provider out here.
Yeah, I could see that, and just having the knowledge and not just selling the product, but knowing how it works when it's in service. Yeah, that's huge to be able to walk on location and know what's going on. And so really the industry knowledge applicable when you're selling it in the store, applicable when you're talking about it when it's on location.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. There is certainly an element of that. And I mean, you're obviously building a lot of equity with your customer when you can be a solutions provider because they're going to bring you a problem. And you may need to go to site and say, hey, look, I understand that you need this termination kit, but I have maybe a different solution for a
Right.
termination kit where you're going to
Mhm.
land this cable wherever you're going to land it. Or it's like, hey, we need to um, have this tray set up. Well, I have a different solution for that. And being able to do that on site and say, hey, look, I have this solution. It kind of gets to, so our slogan is make it happen, right? And
Mhm.
so I think we've done very well in a market, say like a market entry like the Permian, where I've already got a slew of competitors who are incumbents, but somebody's going to bring us a problem that somebody else can solve. And our ownership expects, like, hey, you make it happen. I don't care how you have to do it, right? You go and provide a unique solution. And that's how we've been able to gain the trust of a lot of the folks out here is, hey, look, nobody else can find this or
Yeah.
nobody else can help me, cash flow my project the way I need to because there's a there's an urgency behind it. But Lone Star's really kind of enabled us to go be a unique solutions provider. And so for that, being able to go on site and find a way to provide a solution has benefited us greatly.
I believe that, and especially when, you show up on location and you can be the solutions provider, you know what you're looking at, and you come from a mechanical background, and so you've been on location. And so you can look at things, you have a different perspective. And so you're in a unique position to be able to translate that from Houston to not just Midland, Odessa, but then out into the fields of the Permian.
So I took this role as the VP of sales for industrial contractors. And, my management is talking about, hey, look, we're launching these verticals at Lone Star Industrial, right? So we have an EPC vertical where we're going to really hone in on the strategy of EPCs. We're going to hone in on the strategies of end users and original equipment manufacturers and and contractors. And I remember hearing it as a sidebar conversation. I was like, guys, I was a contractor for 6 years. I know how a contractor eats and breathes and sleeps and the urgency, and it's just a go. I know what it's like to work with an inspector who's incredibly difficult and how that then gets pushed to, the suppliers. And so when I took that role, I may not have as a mechanical setting a compressor, right? I don't know how to electrically install that, but I know the urgency behind
Right.
getting that project done. I
Mhm.
know the dynamics of that relationship. And so if I'm able to work with my team and say, hey, look, we have to build our stock profile around electrical contractors who are setting compressors, who are installing lac skids,
Mhm.
doing meter stations,
Yeah.
or wiring up a CTB because they need panels, right? I know what that looks like from a contractor's end, and so while I'm not an expert and I'm not a journeyman or a master electrician, I know what the genesis of getting that job done looks like,
Yeah.
and so it's been helpful, especially for this team out here, to be successful, that we've kind of adequately prepared ourselves from, setting ourselves up to succeed from a stock profile standpoint, from having the experience of people, because here, especially in Odessa, when we get a request, it's, "I need it in an hour or 2." Whereas in Houston, it's like, "Hey, guys, if you turn it over in 3 days, that's fine." I mean, again, getting back to that sense of urgency, well, we can't have a lot of green folks who are out here like, "Oh, yeah, let me put that together for you." It's like, "Hey, no, I need
Mhm.
experience because I need people to understand that when it comes to the electrical contractor market, we're gonna do 600 bids a month."
Mhm.
Whereas if I'm working on the end user side or the EPC market, where you're looking at a feed study and a project that may not happen for another year, year and a half,
Right.
the development and preparation for that is much different than the electrical contractors who are, hey, I've got a job, I'm going to turn it over in 2 weeks, and then I got another one in 2 weeks, and then so kind of understanding the dynamics of completion and execution are much much different.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, a wealth of experience that you were able to take with you to Houston and then bring it back. And you said you've been coming out here every other week for 6 years, and that's been your schedule and that's kind of worked out, or does that meet the demands, you'd say, as far as meeting with clients? And
Yeah, I think so. I It's been about every other week for 6 years, no less than once a month. Now that I'm in this role and we service electrical contractors on the renewable end, um, I may be in Colorado or Maryland or somewhere on a solar site, and then the other week I may be here, but
oh,
I
okay.
am here no less than once a month. But it's a necessity to ensure that we are competitive, in this market, right? It's I cannot afford, and Lone Star cannot afford to, um, look away for that long out here because the market's always changing, the demand is always changing, and
Mhm.
so, for me, whether it's me or my boss or somebody else for Lone Star, they're they're going to be out here regularly making sure that our team has everything they need to succeed.
Mhm. And I mean, that is some wisdom speaking, because the industry is always changing the way we do things, and it's not even just that it's changing, it's always evolving. If there's something innovative that comes out, there's new technology, there's new safety requirements,
Yeah.
there's new demands from the gas company. And I mean, everything changes constantly.
Yeah, I think one of the things we're seeing as a change right now is kind of the dynamics of the commodities market. Um, 6 months ago, so obviously we sell a lot of cable, a lot of wire. It's a very commodity driven product, right? There's a lot of copper in this cable. There's a lot of aluminum in this cable. And you don't realize that the swing in the commodities market drives the price of this cable. Well, for a long time, it was a very steady market up until, say, a two months ago. Well, 6 months ago, you could say, hey, Chris, I need 1,000 foot of 500 MCM, aluminum or copper, whatever you want to call it. And I said, great, Breezy, your cost is good for a month. Take your time making a decision. And then you start to see the market move a little bit with copper and aluminum. And my manufacturers are going to do the best they can to hedge their cost, right? Because it takes a while to build this cable and they don't want to build it at $4 a pound and then it goes to $3 a pound. We're like,
Mhm.
oh crap, we've got expensive cable now.
Yeah.
Or, they build it at $4 a pound and it's going to five. Well, guess what? I mean, we're gonna make some money. So they're always trying to hedge, and so are we. Um, but you have a really dynamic copper market right now where it is moving 20 to 30 cents a pound on a daily basis. You can't hedge. So our manufacturers are reaching out to us saying, hey guys, your quotes used to be good for a month and then it went to like your quote's good for 2 weeks. It's now good for like 24 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm reaching out to my customers, not as like a sales tactic to be like, "Hey, you better buy it now because you never know." It's like, "Hey guys, I want to have a candid conversation with you. I'm just telling you, copper went up 15 cents a pound yesterday. I can honor this price until 5 o'clock today because you know how it is. I mean, we may wait 3 days out here to get a decision on getting a purchase order so that we can go ahead and execute it. Our electrical contractor submits a price to the end user. Well, they submitted a price 3 days ago that's no longer any good. And now, hey, guess what? It's 20% more. I mean, I just had it happen, not oil and gas related, but on a renewable job in Colorado where it was really, really volatile. And we're talking millions of dollars of medium voltage cable that went from $4 million for thousands of feet. And because this price of copper had spiked 20 cents a pound, it went up $200,000, just the price in one day like that. And so from an AFE standpoint, and end users trying to make a decision like
Mhm.
how do I navigate purchasing these materials for maybe like a phase one or a phase two of a
Right.
project, we are calling saying, hey, look, even if you don't buy it from us, please be aware that
Mhm.
you may want to hedge against a spike in the commodities market by going ahead and purchasing the commodity driven products ahead of time. So if you don't need to build phase two until November of this year, we highly recommend that you go ahead and purchase that because we're seeing an upward trend in the market, whether that's aluminum or copper. And so that's what we're trying to have those conversations with our customers to be like, please be cognizant and please be patient with us because I'm not trying to, like, you may send me a PO. I'm like, I've now got to reprice. I mean, it's just making them aware that, we're not just moving the price ourselves. Like a lot of our business is commodity driven and a lot of our pricing moves a lot. And it's not even, say, for example, like cable, we sell a lot of materials into the transmission and distribution market. And I mean, this is something I learned even as of recent is, wood poles for distribution, right? You drive across the road, you've got transmission wire and wood poles. So we saw a lot of wood poles into the overhead contractor market, and end users are trying to tie their assets into the electrical grid. Well, they soak those poles in what's called creosote, a chemical. Well, there's another chemical called CCA. Well, one of the biggest creosote plants in North America up in Canada shuts down, right? And
Oh,
there's regulations coming down from the government about creosote chemicals. Well, guess what? The market goes bananas because nobody can get creosote. And so now wood poles are starting to swing. And so I'm calling my customers like, hey, I know you wanted this 40 foot, 45 foot class two pole at, 1,400 bucks a pole. Well, I, I'm now being told my price is now variable with my manufacturer. So now I've got to hedge and be like, as an electrical distributor, we're trying to make, 10, 15, 20% profit on our business to be a regular occurring business. Well, now I've got to put 25, 30% on this pole because my manufacturer may come back to me like, hey, your price changed since the time that you got your purchase order. So again, kind of getting back to that hedging and the dynamics of the market driving not only decision making, but those conversations that we're having with our customers.
Well, with something like that, that's clearly out of your control and that's coming from, I mean, the absolute source.
Yeah.
And so that's going to change things. And but having those transparent conversations, I think that it's valuable to your customers because you're working with them as a partner the same way you work with your channel partners.
100%.
So you're giving them a heads up, you're giving them industry knowledge and insight. So then as they prepare for projects or like current projects, anything they have ongoing, they can make a little bit better decision on what to do because you're giving them that insight. But if you don't communicate it like that, if suddenly there's just a spike in the price and here's your invoice, then it seems like, oh, well, they think, they've got the customer base here now and they're just going to drive their prices up.
Yeah, I
Like,
need a new pair of shoes. I'm gonna go ahead and put
yeah,
it on this.
it's all about that perception. When there's not transparent communication,
Right.
it's like somebody is going to interpret that,
100%.
but you are going to decide how it's interpreted. Are you going to explain it beforehand so that they can make that calculated decision? Or are you just going to let them get the invoice and whatever they make of it is up to them? Because a lot of people just avoid that kind of confrontation because you don't want to have the hard conversations.
100% agree with that. I believe in absolute candidness when you're working with your customer. I think it drives a really fruitful partnership. I have a customer who I have no problem saying, "This is where I am. This is my cost," because I want you to know at all times that I'm not trying to take advantage of you. And so and I will tell him like, "Look, in order for me to have a profitable business, I need to be between 15 and 20%." And he will say, "Okay, great. I am very, very tight on this job. I'm still bidding this job. I need you to be tight as well." Great. No problem. I'm going to put say 5 to 6% on this bill of material. Let's go win this together.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
gonna be other
Mhm.
times where I'm gonna say, "Hey, this is my cost." He's like, "Chris, take care of yourself. Put 25 on it. Put 30 on it. Take care of yourself. You really, really helped me out on that last one." That develops a really, really true partnership. Now, look, you can't do that for everybody, right? Especially in a fly by night market. I can't go to every single electrical company and be like, "Hey, here's my cost. What do you want me to be at?" Right? I can't do
Right.
that. But there's gonna be instances, right? So having that really, really candid conversation saying, "Hey, look, this is where I am. This is where I've got to be." And there's gonna be times where I'm like, "Hey, I have to be here. I
Mhm.
have to be." And I hope that is good enough to go and win that job. But you kind of hope to get there. And I think it not only drives a really fruitful conversation with your customer, but when they understand how that materials flow through into their business, then they can start to have really fruitful conversations
Yeah.
with their customers as well. And we find that especially on the transformer market when you've got say Targa or Kinder or Energy Transfer is building a new compressor station and they've got to put a really large transformer on that site. Well, they're the electrical contractor who's going to be procuring that or the EPC is going to come to us and say, "Hey, look, we need a transformer." And I'm going to lay out all the options like, "Hey, this is where I'm at and this is where I'm going to be. Here's," and there's a lot of, transformers are very commodity driven too, right? The price, there's copper windings, right? Um, this is where I'm at. Here's where the market's swinging. Now go to your customer and let them know, "Hey, here's what's driving this lead time. Here's what's driving the price." And then the end user really appreciates the candidness behind the conversation of like, "Hey, what is this product that's flowing through into my asset?"
Mhm.
And so we're driving fruitful conversations with our customers who are then expecting to have fruitful conversations with their end users.
Yeah, I absolutely can see that because, as vast as the industry is, and then you get inside your sector, it gets even more detailed from there. And so a lot of people, when they bid jobs, they want to bid in the broad strokes, or they run their projects with the broad strokes, but it's in the detail where you're efficient, where you save money, you
Yeah.
make money. We all walk away understanding it better and then bringing the value up like that
Yeah.
and starting from the source of the supply chain out onto location and everyone's understanding a little bit more and then wanting to continue having those types of conversations to where that end user is going to want to work with that contractor again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a believer, and you're welcome to wholeheartedly disagree, but I don't think we operate in a value proposition market anymore. I think COVID really killed kind of the value prop,
Oh, yeah.
because we're such in a like time and money space, right? It's hey, if you got great lead time and great cost, boom, let's go, let's go. And so by having these conversations, I feel like we're really reintroducing the value add, the value prop of like, hey, I've got it's not just a transactional business, right? It's hey, you need this wire. Okay, I'll take your money. Here's your wire. You can go now.
Call me when you need more
Call
wire.
me when you need more wire, right? It's
Right.
no like breezy, like let's have a conversation of like, okay, yeah, I'm happy to be a resource for you on this wire, but tell me what you have coming up. Let me let you know what the market looks like. Let me know what I'm trying to do to help your business going forward, right? Let me let you know about the commodities market if you're not already aware. And do you have a specific end user who needs something, a certain spec about this wire? Well, let me tell you what's going on about that and making them more well informed so that, again, the decision making uh, can be a more fruitful process.
Yeah, no, I do absolutely agree with you on that. I think, it was very interesting to see, from a business standpoint, the reaction to COVID. There were a lot of businesses just doing everything they could to survive. There were others, completely taking advantage of some of the financial support, and there were a lot of layoffs. You know, it
100%.
was,
I
there
got laid
was
off twice.
I got
Yeah.
laid off once, and I thought, that was the end of my career in oil and gas. And like, I don't even think it's worth it anymore. And it
Yeah.
wasn't at that time in a lot of ways. The industry really shifted. There were a lot of businesses that stayed intact and kept operating because they were already strong, they were whole, or they were just really able to sustain. But I think that from COVID to where we are now, there has been just a melting pot of everything that's transitioned from the way we conduct meetings and being able to communicate. And then, people wanting to be in the Permian, different businesses that have come up, different parts of the industry that have kind of fallen away. But to your point about the value add, that's also how I see it. Set yourself apart by showing the value that you add,
Absolutely.
not just saying, "Well, I can do this service too," because it's very easy, especially when we have our social media presence and you can mirror what somebody else is doing. You can copy a lot of what you're seeing that's working or that
Yeah.
appears to be working. But if you don't have the depth, if you don't have the experience, if you don't have that mindset of wanting to have these types of partnerships and provide value for them, then you're only going to get so far because there's only so much you can do with the shell. You got to have what's inside too.
Yeah. You have to find a differentiated service, right? So on the mechanical side, if we're bidding against each other on the pipeline side, right, but we're going to have our labor rates, we're going to have our equipment. There's not going to be a lot of differentiated service. What we found the differentiated service was the crews that we had, the superintendents that we had who had a wealth of experience already laying pipelines for Medallion or already laying a poly pipeline for, a water bridge, right? Somebody like that. That was the differentiator. You look at the electric supply market, we all sell conduit. We all sell fittings. We all sell wire and tray. So what is that differentiated service? And one thing we are trying to do to communicate the value is I'm going to walk into one of my electrical contractors and say, "Hey, when's your next safety stand down? When's your next safety meeting? Is it on site? Do you do it here? Because I know it's at least once a month." And they're looking at me like, "You sell me wire. Why do you care about my safety meeting?" I'm like, "No, I'm going to be there." We have a division of our company of tools and equipment where they sell PPE as well. Our president of that division is former EMS, former, fire, and he's highly, highly invested in the safety portion of our contractor's business. And so we'll show up. Yeah, look, hey, we're happy to provide breakfast. Look, we'll give giveaways, but I want to hear about what you're going through in your line of business, how you're executing that job. What are you struggling with on the safety side? I mean, are you having a hard time getting safety vests or gloves or, hot gloves, getting them dielectrically tested or hot sticks, whatever it is? Like, hey, let me be a part of that. I don't want to just be a supplier to you. Like, I want to be an absolute resource. And that even means on the safety side. So we see a lot of success where we're integrating ourselves into their safety side of the business. And you're building equity with your customers in that they're like, man, they just don't want the revenue. Like
Right.
they care about our guys and our women in the field. Like we
Mhm.
really want to take care of them. And so um I would say that has been one of our biggest differentiators out here because the looks on their faces when they say, "You wanna come to our safety meeting at 6:30 in the morning?" Like, "Yeah, absolutely we do. I wanna be there." And so it really, really transforms that relationship when you're, really investing yourself
Mhm.
into the safety side of the business.
Yeah, I agree absolutely because I mean safety has evolved into a culture of its own. Like safety in the oil field has always been important, but the safety training that's available out here, the extensive certifications that you have to be on locations, the follow-up trainings that we have, emergency trainings that are available now. So for you to invest in that time to show support,
Mm,
to cater breakfast, to be there to hear what kind of problems they've had and to celebrate, that they've had 0 incidences on
100%.
location, that's huge, and then it's also it's educational for you to know to keep up with what's changing in the field,
Yeah,
to know what's going on because everything starts from safety. You have to have your PPE, you have to be trained to be on location. That's the first step before you actually execute the work. So then you're there, you're building the relationships, like you said, that's building equity in the relationships you have with your customers and not just the customer rep that you deal with that needs the supplies. You're actually getting to interact with the field workers and seeing the whole team or your reps that are out here being able to introduce themselves and represent Lone Star. And
yeah,
so your team just continues to evolve and your presence here has really grown and developed, and so it's really exciting to have you in the brick and mortar, and like you said, you're in a great location right there on Highway 80
yeah.
between Midland and Odessa. I mean
Yeah, no, I think we're very excited about this venture, and again, we don't wanna be seen as a flash in the pan. We're really here for the long haul, and we're excited about being in the community, right? It's look, I may be from Houston, and I may be driving business from Houston and, have customers out here, but our warehouse manager is from Odessa. Our branch manager is from Odessa, right? We have employees that are born and raised in Midland. They're here and they want to see that, hey, this isn't just a paycheck, right? I work for a company that's invested in me and where I live, right? And so we've got folks whose kids go to Odessa High or Permian or Midland Lee, and so we want to make those investments into the ISDs and the Chamber of Commerce, right? Where we we want to invest ourselves in the community, not only uh, because we're here, but it's important to the folks that work for us, and it's important to the folks we do business with, right? We don't want to just be a revenue generator out here. It's like no, like we want to be an active part of the community.
and I think that's important because community is very important in the Permian Basin,
100%.
and being involved and donating and celebrating and being a part of supporting the community. And, a lot of the relationships can be strained from the ones that are in the field to the ones that are here in Midland, Odessa, and then out in Houston, decision makers, suppliers, and so on. Like the further away you get, the I mean, you're more detached. You're not here. You're not seeing what's going on. You're not involved,
Yeah, there's a
and
disconnect. Yeah,
there's a huge disconnect. And so even people that work out here that come to work in the field, and when they get days off or a holiday, they go home and wherever that is. I mean, people come out here to work from all over the country and I mean, essentially some from different parts of the world come
yeah,
to work in the Permian. And so building that community and strengthening the community is very important because I mean, we're generating power for the world and then you get that support from the industry in different areas. It's just feeding what we're creating. And so when you are investing your energy from Houston, you're just bringing in that much more of the industry, and you're doing it in a very thoughtful way and investing in the local employees that you have that are
Yeah.
from here, that are part of that community that we're trying to support. And so it's a really great way to not only have a strong presence here, but have a strong impact.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, I look at it like, a lot of our employees have younger kids, and I would hope, in the future that we could invest in, say, like a little league, right? Where I grew up playing little league baseball. And I would hope that, in the future, Lone Star could have some sort of representation at a little league, right? Whether it's on the back of a jersey or on a sign or whatever, right? Because I want our employee to take their kids to the park and say, I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
Right, and I want my customers who are my friends to be like, "I appreciate that."
Yeah.
Right? They're investing in, the areas that I have my family. And so, yeah, again, it's important to us, and we want our employees to be proud of who they work for. And we're really striving to make that happen.
Well, when I went to your grand opening, I felt that. There was a lot of excitement, a lot of celebration, and I mean, it was really great setup and good location, and I do have to touch on the sign that you picked out for the back of the building.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a very interesting, again, very thoughtful way of putting your presence in the community and where people gather. So, big staple in the Permian is Wednesday nights at Shack in the Back.
Sure.
That's where you're
It's a great
going to
time.
network. And with your building located right in front of Shack in the Back, it was very clever of you to put a Lone Star sign on the back of the building so that when you're at Shack and you're looking at the stage, you're gonna see the Lone Star logo on the building.
So there's a bit of a story behind it. So, I come out here my very first week working at Lone Star. And again, kind of the what I communicated earlier, like, hey Chris, if you want to do business out here, you got to be here. And so I go to our management and say, all right, guys, we got to have brick and mortar. We got to be here. And they're like, great, well, absolutely, we'll do it. They're like, okay, first off, where do you want to be? And I've been going to Shack and Back for a while, and I remember the first time I went, someone was like, "Don't you ever go without having a stack of business cards with you," because I didn't realize the impact again on the community, the folks that show up. Right? I mean, you're going to meet a wealth of people across the industry, and for me, it's one of the single greatest networking events that happens every single week.
Mhm.
Um, so I drop a pin on the warehouse in front of Shack in the Back. And so we start doing, looking for real estate, and we're looking off of 191 and 20. And lo and behold, the building I dropped the pin on, the old Pepsi building, the old Sears building, is available. It's the largest warehouse in the Permian with 18-wheeler access. Well, obviously, we're very excited about that. And you, what I found is it's hard to describe the impact of Shack in the Back, and credit to them, that it has on the community. And so I'm trying to explain this to my management. I'm saying, all right, guys, like, we're going to take this building, but I want to have a sign on the back of it. And I wish you could have seen the looks on their face. They're like,
I can only imagine.
why would in the world would we put a sign on the back of our building? And until they saw, and they believed in me, they had enough faith to say, "All right, if Chris wants a sign on the back of the building, we'll do it." And so you've seen it, right? So it's a big Texas logo. It's got the Lone Star Electric Supply on it. And I don't know if I've had a prouder moment than one of the first Wednesdays I went, and it's in the evening, and you've got a great musician up there playing, and that little Texas logo is, right behind their head.
Very cool.
And I don't know if I've ever been more proud to be like, "Hey, I'm proud of that."
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who come through here and be like, "Man, I wonder what that is." Like,
Mhm.
and I can't tell you how many people, when I'm out here, especially if I meet someone new, I'm like, "Yeah, I work at Lone Star." Like, "Man, you guys are right next to Shack in the Back. I just saw you,
Mhm.
when I drove right by, last week." And so for us, 1, we were very fortunate to get that, and then 2, I'm glad my team had the faith in me to say, "All right, Chris, we'll put a sign in the back of the building."
Yeah.
So
Because you wouldn't understand that if you
yeah,
hadn't experienced that networking and seen the community there and the value again, with the value add, and really just that very subtle nod, but contributing to the ambiance. I mean, at night, it's lit up, and it's subtle, but, in the Permian, it's all about brand recognition. You see a
Sure.
logo, you see a brand, and then you connect who it is and what they do, and you can immediately form an opinion, and you want it to be good.
Yeah.
And so when people see that Lone Star Electric logo and they know who you are, what you represent, what you're all about, what
Yeah.
you're contributing here, that will just grow.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I will say, there was an unexpected hurdle when we got out here because of the sheer amount of companies with the name Lone Star. In fact,
There's quite a few of those.
we have a customer, the Lone Star Instrumentation and Electrical, and, right out the gate, we weren't seeing a lot of business, and so we're going to our potential customers saying, "Hey, is there something we're doing that is not allowing us to see your opportunities?" And they're like, "Why would we send our opportunities to a competitor?" And I'm like, "I get it. That's not us." And I can't tell you how many times we had to have that conversation. Or they're
Mhm.
like, "Hey, are you guys associated with the tools rental or the whatever?" Like, "No, like we're Lone Star Electric Supply." So it took a while to really communicate that message and get it across. It's
I've seen that happen with a few companies
yeah,
like that, especially with the name Lone Star.
sure.
That's a big one. But there's a couple out here where and it just gets confusing, especially if it's a part of the industry that you're not familiar with.
Yeah,
And so then you automatically merge the two,
sure.
or there's no distinction there. But I mean, you guys are here, you're here to stay, you put up your brick and mortar, you got a sign on the back and everything.
Yeah, no, look, we're here to stay. It's I think our management understands how vital um the Permian is to our business. I mean, it's look, there was a quick lesson learned for them in that the first time I brought out my CEO and my president, we're preparing to get on the plane and they're like, "Well, who do you have set up for us out there?" I don't have any meetings set up. That's not how it works out here. And I was like, when we land on Monday morning, I will start calling. Right. There's a dynamic of, hey, are you available now? Or are you available this afternoon? It's not, hey, can I get on your calendar in 2 weeks and come in? This didn't work. Right. So I think our management understands the different dynamics of driving business out here, right? The dynamics of the urgency, the dynamics of how we respond to our customers through the solutions that we provide, and then just the the sheer demand of like having a good resource out here who can supply their projects going forward. And so they're making every investment possible to make sure that we're successful out here. And I'm extremely grateful for that.
Oh, I'm sure you are, and being able to bridge that gap, to be able to explain the world and then show it,
Yeah.
and how you understand the functionality of the Permian. Because 'cause you're right. You you could get on someone's calendar, you could get a whole week's worth of appointments scheduled, and how many of those are even gonna stay?
Almost none.
None.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to change, you're gonna have to work them in, and people are gonna forget, now they're out of town, they've
Yeah.
got something else going on, like, anything can happen, but with you coming out as consistently as you do, that's a great way to just kinda shoot from the hip and say, "You wanna have lunch? Are you available? I'm here now,
Absolutely.
I'll meet you on location," like, whatever it is, and there's so much energy that gets created on that spontaneous moment when you can connect like that.
Absolutely.
And it's not a long drawn out meeting that gets scheduled and put on your calendar, and then you get a confirmation, and then it has to get changed, and by the time you finally meet with this person,
Yeah.
but, if you look through your contacts and you can connect with somebody on the fly and you can solve the problem,
Yeah.
you have set yourself up to be the problem solver. You're not just coming out here to sell to somebody, you're seeing who's available, what's going on,
Yeah.
and where you can implement your services and implement your knowledge and be of assistance.
You have to be very, very versatile to work out here and flexible. A great example is yesterday, I'm on the west side of Odessa having lunch with a customer, and I'm asking, we just finished, and I need to desperately get in front of this customer because we have a significant opportunity with him coming up. And he's like, "Man, I don't know if I'm available this afternoon." Okay, well, I'm on to the next one. And he calls me right back. Can you get to north of Big Spring right now? Yeah, I'm there, right? And so that's, you know, when you're working with customers out here, that's how it goes, right? It's making yourself, let me make myself available to you. I will work around you.
Mhm.
And that has to be the genesis of how you work with people around here. It's like, look, I know as an end user or as a customer, you're trying to take care of your business. Let me make myself as flexible as possible for you
Mhm.
so that if I got to meet you on the side of the road, if I got to meet you at a Stripes or a Flying J or, a Love's or north of Big Spring at some site, yeah, I'm there.
Mhm.
Whatever I got to do, I'll make that happen.
Yeah.
And so I love, love, love that dynamic out here because, look, I'm in Houston. You're not going to show up to anybody and go meet. It's like, hey, man, were you on my calendar? Or, hey, Dallas, like, I live off of my calendar. So why don't you shoot me a meeting invite? It's
Mhm.
like, no, man, out here. Hey, are you available now? Are you available in an hour? Yeah, I'm going to meet you right here.
Right.
I'm, I got it.
Well, and I think that because being so close to the actual source of the work,
Yeah.
that you have to work around that.
Yep.
You have to work around what's being built, the demands of, we need gas flowing through this line. We need, we've got trucks coming.
Yep.
I mean, like you have to meet those demands, and like the last thing you want to be is what's being worked around. You're the
Yeah.
supplier.
Yeah.
And so you could put a kink in those plans very easily, or just not really investing the same sense of urgency. Knowing the sense of urgency, working around it, and then you're not setting yourself up for failure. You're not setting up 15 meetings that don't happen and like, man, I couldn't get those meetings. It's the nature of the
It's the
business
nature
out
of the
here.
business. It's the nature of the business. Getting back to the urgency, right? So our electrical contractors are the last on site,
Oh, yes, they are. I
right?
do know that.
And oftentimes, if milestones are slipping, say civil slips or mechanical slips, guess who's trying to make up all the ground?
Oh, it's definitely electrical. I've seen that many times.
Right? I'm hoping my electrical contractor is just trying to give me a fist bump through the camera, but because they're like, "Hey, man, he gets it." It's no, but honestly, it's like, "Hey, we needed this site live in 8 weeks. Man, we're 2 weeks behind. Hey, the Mr. or Mrs. Electrical Contractor, can you,
Yeah.
get your guy?" And so,
And electrical always seems to come in clutch like that too.
yeah, they do a great job, but we wanna be a facet of helping them, drive that business
Mhm.
to completion, right? You have a critical path milestone that you're trying to meet. Hey, what do I got to do? I will make myself as flexible as possible or
Yeah.
as versatile as possible with my supply or anything outside of that that I can do to help you achieve your job. Hey, you need this stick of tray that costs, $20 and you're an hour away, but you don't want to send your guy because you desperately need him. Man,
Mhm.
I'll put it in my truck. I'll go right now.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's a little bit of that element of, again, getting back to is like understanding, hey, our customers are the last line of defense.
Mhm.
How do you support that?
Yeah,
Right.
and I love that because any location I've ever worked on, it's always electrical there to the end and
Yeah.
always doing a great job. It's like just always admiring the work and the efficiency, the dedication, the quality that gets done, and it's rarely that electrical slips. It is always 9 times out of 10, it's gonna be civil or
As
mechanical.
a former mechanical contractor, I can confirm that. So,
Absolutely, absolutely, and I'm picturing all the different things that have held it up in the past.
yeah, absolutely.
And so, like, really just wanting to be a partner through it all and, getting to have that brick and mortar out here to support you even more. I mean, you guys have grown, you're establishing yourselves in the community and just broadening Lone Star Electric. You guys have already been, I mean, doing fantastic work in Houston, in Dallas, and other regions, but to really be a go-to service provider and partner here in the Permian, it's extremely valuable and really appreciate hearing
Well,
about it.
I appreciate that too. One, I want to give credit to not only just the business, but our marketing department does a great job of getting the word out. But I wanted to say thank you to you as well, right? Because when we started first having conversations, again, I wanted to relay to our team how important it is to partner with someone like yourself who has a voice in the community, a voice in the Permian, right? There's a legitimacy behind that, and that's I just want to say one, thank you to you for allowing us to even partner because it's important to me and it's important to Lone Star that while we do have a phenomenal marketing department, I really wanted a local touch, and I think you provide a great job, and you do a really great job with this platform, so thank you for that.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate that, and when we first talked, it was I could sense there was something that we could really do together.
Yeah,
And your marketing team does do a phenomenal job. I enjoy sharing the content. And as my show has, taken a deeper root, I'm really enjoying being able to showcase what other regions are doing for clients that I have here in the Permian or different companies that I represent or work with in some way. And so being able to share your content, what your sales managers are doing in DFW,
sure.
what you guys have going on in Houston. It's cool. And then it also shows that quality across the board that you might be just building here in the Permian as far as the brick and mortar and being relatively new. But when you look at the marketing of the different regions, but then investing that into your sales team here and letting them explain a little bit in the videos of what you provide and seeing that unity across the board, it goes hand in hand with what I've been trying to do,
Yeah.
showcasing what we're doing in the Permian, how we're working together, how we can be efficient, and really bringing up the quality and the value. So we were definitely aligned with, I mean, without even knowing it, like what we're trying to contribute. Like, again, with wanting to be a partner in all of it, because with what I'm doing with Power of the Permian, it's about what's happening in the Permian. It's about the companies that are here doing good work, the people that are representing them, and being able to explain a little bit about how the industry functions, about how business is done here in this region and how it impacts the rest of the world. And so there's a wealth of opportunity for us in working together like this.
Yeah, I agree, and I think, you really hit the nail on the head. I think there's a demand for information. I think there's people who are seeking to hear more about these different verticals in the Permian, right? From the facet of guests that you've had, and so I think there's a real demand for that, and I think you guys do a great job of meeting that.
Well, I appreciate that, Chris. And I appreciate you again coming on the show and talking to me today and talking about Lone Star.
Thank you for having me.
You bet.